My parents forced me to hand over 50% of my paycheck to my golden child brother. Years later, I finally got my revenge at my wedding. My name is Aurora, and I am 30 years old. I have always had a problematic connection with my younger brother, James, who is 10 years old and male. Growing up, our parents continuously preferred him, causing a lot of conflict between us. They would praise James for even the smallest accomplishments while scarcely mentioning my own. Our family dynamics were not always like this. When I was younger, before James was born, my parents made me feel loved and supported. They'd take me to the park, give me bedtime tales, and proudly hang my artwork on the fridge. However, everything changed when James came. James was always destined to be the golden child. Our parents adored him, frequently ignoring my needs in the process. As we grew older, our preference simply grew stronger. I distinctly recall my 10th birthday. I had been begging for a bicycle for months, leaving clues and magazine clippings about the house. When the big day arrived, I eagerly opened my presents, only to discover clothing and books. My parents explained that a bicycle was prohibitively expensive. Only 2 weeks later, they presented James with a brand new bike for no apparent reason. When I inquired why he got one and I didn't, they answered, "James needs more exercise. You're fine without one." This pattern persisted during our childhood. When I made honor roll in middle school, my parents barely looked at the certificate. When James received a B+ on a single test, the entire family went out to supper to celebrate. As we approached adolescence, the disparity in how we were treated became more evident. When I was 16, I obtained my first part-time work in a neighborhood bookshop. I was ecstatic to finally have my own source of income and began saving for education. However, my enthusiasm was short-lived. James, then 13, protested to our parents that it was unfair that I spent money while he did not. Instead of encouraging him to wait until he was old enough to obtain his own work, our parents demanded an unreasonable amount. They requested I give James half of my monthly profits. I was taken aback and attempted to protest, but they threatened to fire me if I refused. Reluctantly, I consented, watching my brother spend half of my hard-earned money on video games and junk food. This incident laid the stage for James to feel entitled to my belongings. Throughout high school, he would frequently borrow my possessions without my permission, clothes, devices, and even my automobile once I obtained my license. If I dared to protest, my parents would lecture me on the value of sharing with my brother. They never seemed to think James should learn to respect other people's property. Despite the continual favoritism, I studied hard in school, believing that academic accomplishment would eventually gain me some attention from my parents. When I was accepted to my dream institution with a partial scholarship, I was overjoyed. I went home to tell my parents, expecting a proud reaction. Instead, they provided a cold response saying, "That's nice, honey," before immediately shifting the conversation to James's last football game. In contrast, when James was accepted into a local community college a few years later, our parents threw him a magnificent celebration. They invited the entire extended family, scheduled catering, and even hired a live band. As I watched them celebrate James's subpar performance, I couldn't help but feel hurt and resentful. The final straw occurred during my second year of college. I'd been saving for months to purchase a high-quality camera for my photography class. Photography had become my passion, a creative outlet for dealing with the stress of my familial situation. I had done significant research and had finally discovered the right camera for my budget. I returned home for Christmas break, excited to finally make my purchase. However, when I went to collect my savings, I realized that a large amount was missing. I quickly discovered that James had taken the money without permission to purchase a new gaming console. When I confronted him, he dismissed it, stating I could simply save up again. Our parents refused to force him to return the console or repay me, dismissing my anguish with a nonchalant, "You should have hidden your money better." This encounter was my breaking point. I knew that regardless of what I did, I would never be a priority in my family. Following that, I distanced myself as much as possible. I worked extra jobs to support myself through college, rarely returning home for trips. When I did, James made snarky remarks about how I thought I was too good for the family. Our parents never reprimanded his behavior, constantly commenting on how I had changed and gotten distant from them. Despite the emotional toll, I graduated with honors and found a nice position in marketing. At my new job, I met Ryan, a 32-year-old male who would become my rock and biggest supporter. We've been dating for 5 years, and he's been quite tolerant about my familial circumstances. Ryan's family is friendly and accepting, demonstrating what healthy family connections should be like. Ryan proposed 6 months ago while on a surprise weekend getaway. It was a lovely moment, and I was so excited to begin planning our future together. However, the excitement of our engagement was swiftly replaced by the fear of dealing with my family during the wedding planning process. After considerable thought and consideration, I decided not to invite James or my parents to the wedding. I want our special day to be full with love and optimism, not the negativity and animosity that has plagued my relationship with my family. Last week, my mother contacted me in tears, asking to know why they hadn't received wedding invitations yet. I took a big breath and said that, given our past, I did not feel comfortable having them attend the wedding. She accused me of being selfish and attempting to punish them, while rejecting my feelings as usual. My father then called, stating I was crushing James's heart by omitting him from such a special day. Apparently James had been telling everyone he was going to be my best man, despite the fact that we hadn't spoken for years. The arrogance of his assumption had me stunned. I held firm and told them my decision was final. This resulted in James bombarding my phone with angry texts, calling me every name in the book. He accused me of being jealous of him and attempting to make myself feel significant. It was as if he had rebuilt our upbringing in his imagination, making himself the victim. My parents have threatened to cut me out of their will if I don't invite them all to the wedding. This threat may have worked years ago, but I no longer expect or want anything from them. Ryan fully supports my decision, recognizing how toxic my familial dynamics are. He has offered to handle any further correspondence with them in order to protect me from their manipulative tactics. Some of my pals, however, have recommended that I simply invite them to preserve the peace. They claim that if I do not have my family present at my wedding, I will regret it. Their remarks have sown the seed of doubt in my thoughts. Am I being overly harsh? Should I give them one final chance? But then I remember all of the pain and disappointment, and I am reminded of why I made this decision in the beginning. I realize this is a long essay, but I felt it was necessary to provide background for why I'm making this decision. So, Reddit, am I an asshole for refusing to have my brother and parents attend my wedding? Update 1. I'd like to thank everyone for their enormous support on my original article. Your remarks and words have given me courage at this tough time. I wanted to provide an update on the issue, as there have been significant changes in the last several weeks. After more discussion with Ryan, I decided to hold firm on my decision not to invite James or my parents to the wedding. However, Ryan advised that I meet with them in person to explain my reasoning, which could give some closure for all of us. Although I was hesitant, I decided it was worth a shot. We decided to meet in a neutral spot, a quiet cafe in a nearby town. I arrived with Ryan, feeling both anxious and determined. My parents and James were already there, with my mother's eyes red from crying and my father sporting his usual disapproving grimace. James, surprise, appeared more reserved than I expected. As soon as we sat down, my mother broke into a sobbing tirade about family loyalty and how I was pulling everyone apart. My father interfered with remarks about how ungrateful I was behaving. I let them speak while taking deep breaths to remain cool. When they eventually ran out of steam, I politely expressed my stance. I brought up specific examples of how they had harmed me over the years, such as the camera incident and the persistent favoritism. I informed them that, while I cared about them, I didn't think we had a relationship that warranted them attending my wedding. To my surprise, James spoke up in a hushed voice. He revealed that he purposefully broke my camera in college. He admitted that he had always been concerned about my academic achievement and regretted that I was leaving him behind by going to college. He stated he wants to take me down a notch to make himself feel better. The table became silent following this revelation. Our parents appeared astonished, as if they were witnessing our dynamic for the first time. My mother tried to make things better by saying, "Well, that was a long time ago, we should let bygones be bygones." But I wasn't having it. I pointed out that James's admission confirmed my point regarding our family's unhealthy dynamic. My father then attempted a new method. He offered to pay for the entire wedding as long as we included them. This financial trickery effort caught me off guard. I declined, stressing that it was not about money, but about surrounding ourselves with sincere supporters. James looked to be really disturbed about this. He began raving about how I had always thought I was superior than the family, and that I would come to regret pushing them away. It was as if all of his previous remorse had vanished, replaced by the same rage and hatred. At that point, Ryan, who had been silently supportive throughout the conversation, recommended we leave. As we stood up, my mother grabbed my arm and asked, sobbing, if this meant I was cutting them out of my life permanently. I honestly told her that I didn't know, but that I needed time to heal and think things through. In the days since this meeting, my phone has been constantly buzzing with messages from extended family members. James and my parents appear to have been fabricating their own version of events, claiming that I am suffering a mental breakdown and attempting to destroy the family. My aunt even called to suggest that I postpone the wedding until I come to my senses. The steady flood of messages and phone calls has been extremely taxing. I found myself questioning my decision at times, wondering if I was overreacting. But then I remember the years of hurt and rejection, and I realize I'm doing the right thing for myself. Ryan has been my rock throughout this. The way my family handled me at the meeting just strengthened his support for my decision. He recommended we go on a weekend trip to get away from the drama and work on our relationship. We ended up heading to a small beach town a couple hours away. During our trip, we spent time wandering on the beach, trying out various eateries, and simply enjoying each other's company without the cloud of family drama hovering over us. One evening, as we watched the sunset, Ryan told me how proud he was of me for sticking up for myself. He reminded me that we are now forming our own family, one based on mutual respect and love. This getaway was just what I needed to reinforce my decision and focused on the wonderful future that awaits us. We even discussed moving to a new place after the wedding to get a fresh start away from the continual reminder of my family's destructive behavior. When we came home, I made the painful decision to block my family's phone number and social media profiles. It felt severe, but I knew I had to safeguard my peace of mind. As the wedding date approached, we took some practical steps to ensure that everything went as planned. We have hired security for the venue in case any unauthorized guests show up. We've also password protected all of our vendor accounts, ensuring that no one can change our plans. It's unfortunate that we need to take these precautions, but I want to be prepared for everything. As the wedding date approaches, I'm trying to focus on the positives, marrying the love of my life surrounded by people who have become family. Yes, I'm still unhappy about the situation with my biological family, but I'm learning to realize that I can't change them or make them appreciate me. All I can do now is move forward and build the life and family I deserve. Thank you for your continued support. It means more than you realize to have people acknowledge my feelings after years of being gaslighted by my family. I'll post another update after the wedding to let everyone know how things go. Update 2. It's been almost a month since my previous update, and I wanted to share some progress with my family and our wedding arrangements. First, some good news. Ryan and I have finalized the majority of the plans for our wedding, and we are both getting excited. We've decided to host a smaller celebration than we originally anticipated, with only our closest friends and Ryan's family in attendance. This approach makes it feel far more intimate and important. We've selected a lovely garden setting for the ceremony and reception. The florist has created magnificent arrangements with my favorite flowers, and we've planned a menu to suit both of our interests. Ryan and I have been practicing our first dance, which has resulted in a lot of laughs and stepped on toes, but it's been a good way to unwind from all of the family turmoil. Now for some bad news. Despite my stated wishes, my family has continued to interfere with our wedding plans. Last week, my mother showed up unexpectedly at my employment. I was in a meeting when a colleague came to get me, claiming there was a distraught woman in the lobby who insisted on seeing me. When I got to the foyer, I discovered my mother in tears, raising a commotion. She was crying and begged me to reconsider, claiming she had already purchased a wedding gown and couldn't face the prospect of not watching her baby girl walk down the aisle. She had brought photo albums from my childhood, hoping that seeing photographs of happier times might change my viewpoint. I was humiliated and angered that she would ambush me at work in that manner. I told her to leave and that if she performed another stunt like that, I would have to call security. She departed in tears, and I felt uncomfortable and preoccupied for the rest of the day. My supervisor was understanding, but I couldn't get rid of the sensation of humiliation. A few days after this encounter, James sent me a lengthy email. Compared to his earlier angry messages, this one appeared more contemplative. He wrote about how he'd been thinking a lot since we met at the cafe. He admitted that he had been a lousy brother growing up and promised to make amends. James went into depth about how he had always been overshadowed by my accomplishments and had acted out due to his own anxieties. He even offered to pay for the camera he shattered all those years ago, claiming he had researched the model and determined its current value. While I admired the gesture and the obvious self-reflection, I couldn't help but think it was too little, too late. Years of hurt and animosity do not dissipate with a single email, no matter how well intended. I responded, thanking him for his apology but stating that I needed space and that my choice on the wedding was definite. Unfortunately, things took a turn when I discovered James had somehow obtained the contact information for our wedding venue. The venue coordinator called me, sounding confused. She explained that someone pretending to be Ryan had called and attempted to add 3 names to the guest list. Fortunately, the organizer was alert and consulted me before making any adjustments. I was astounded to find that James had gone to such extremes. It felt like a massive violation of my boundaries, and I wondered if his apology email was genuine, or simply another manipulation attempt. This incident confirmed my choice not to invite them. Ryan was enraged when I informed him of James's attempted lie. He advised we look for a restraining order because he was concerned that my relatives would try to disrupt the wedding. We're thinking about our alternatives, but I'm hesitant to take legal action unless absolutely necessary. The prospect of taking legal action against my own family, no matter how justifiable, feels like a significant step. On a more positive side, Ryan's family has been really supportive throughout this. Last weekend, his parents asked me over to supper, and his mother pulled me away for a private conversation. She told me that she already considered me a daughter and was proud of me for advocating for myself. It was touching to feel so embraced and cherished by them, especially given my own family's actions. As the wedding approaches, I'm trying to focus on the positive and not let my family's behavior overshadow this beautiful occasion. Ryan and I have begun premarital counseling, which has been quite beneficial in processing everything that has occurred and improving our communication. We've been talking about our hopes for the future and how we want our relationship to vary from what I had growing up. We've also chosen to plan something unique for our bachelor and bachelorette parties. Instead of large parties, we have scheduled a private cooking class for ourselves and our wedding party. It is nice to develop new traditions that are meaningful to us, rather than conforming to others' expectations.